Let me move on to Stan, who asked the following question. The Trump administration and many of its ideological allies have been pushing the idea that any minority with a job might not actually deserve their position. Amongst other examples, the Trump administration asserted without any evidence that DEI was to blame for the recent mid-air collision between an Army helicopter and a plane in Washington. Are you at all concerned that your repeated rhetoric against DEI has contributed to an environment where minority professionals are automatically presumed to be unqualified and incompetent?
So you and I did it?
Our repeated criticisms of DNI have contributed to such a circumstance.
Frankly, the whole affirmative action regime since 1970 has contributed to that. Glenn and I are just two people. And in any case, does that mean that we shouldn't have said anything? Should we have just sat silent and not expressed our opinions because MAGA people might interpret us in the wrong way? What would this person suggest? Why would we keep silent about what is a very real issue? Glenn, what do you think?
I agree with you 100%. I think, and I've been saying this for a long time about affirmative action, it's baked into the cake that you're going to raise doubts about the competency of people belonging to the group that is very loudly and publicly being advocated to receive special treatment in the assessment of their
special treatment in the
means
assessment
lowered
of their
standards. Qualifications. It's unavoidable. It's a logical necessity that my posterior estimate of the productivity or competency of a person who I am told belongs to a population that is being preferentially selected will be adversely affected by the information that they belong to that population. It's just logic. You can't avoid it. And it's a cost to this kind of policy that needs to be taken on board. It's not necessarily a prohibitive cost in every instance. I would argue, you might say, that's part of what you're doing as a transition method in order to, diversify this or that, but at least acknowledge the reality of the fact that it's a cost. Rather than wagging your finger in the faces of people, calling them bad people because they are making rational statistical inferences from the information that's available to them.
I remember I had a colleague when I was at UC Berkeley, a man of a certain age, who had a couple of kids, and he was justifying affirmative action, but he said parenthetically that his son, this is a Jewish American man, Jewish had nothing to do with it actually, frankly, it was George Lakoff. George Lakoff is a prominent linguist. Yeah, there's no reason to keep him hidden. George was talking with me about affirmative action when I started coming out against it. And he said that his son had a black friend. And the son and the white friends were applying to colleges. And, they got into some and they didn't get into others. And the black friend got into every single place that he applied to. And George's response to this was, he said, "Oh," and my son went, "Oh." And then George just moves on. And for George, the idea was, well, that's a little awkward, but frankly, and I let it go, life is complicated. But frankly, what that meant was the black friend was admitted under lower standards than the other people because of the pretty color of his skin. That's what people see. That's what George Lakoff's son saw. I don't know anything about George Lakoff's son, but I'm going to guess that he is a left-leaning, democratic, very racially sensitive human being. However, lowered standards. It's not something that you institute forever, and it's not wrong for two self-aware black men such as us to speak out against the continuation of that forever.
Yeah, I agree. And the only way that we, Black people, can break out from the suspicion of our competency is by being vetted and measured by objective standards that are applied to everyone and excelling at those standards. Cajoling is not an effective rebuttal of the argument that we had to lower the bar to get you in here. I'm not sure you're up to snuff. The only effective redress to that is to perform in a manner that makes it clear that I'm up to snuff.